The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. My little skills thing is cattywampus. Thrilled to be here with you this morning and so excited for the show that we have for you. I have sad news at the start of the show. You know, usually on Wednesday we come to you live with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she has been called away. And she sends her apologies and I send my apologies. We're going to show a previously recorded version of Dr. Doreen. Then we're going to be back live with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And we've got great guests during that. We've got a mom that's going to be here. She wrote the book Raising Ross about her adventures with her son through autism. And of course, we have the fabulous Elaine Hall, Coach E, who's going to be with us talking about the new show that they're doing at the Miracle Project and some of the things that the film that she worked on, Please Stand By Me, has been up to in recent days, weeks, and months. So all of that's going to be happening. We love to hear from you. Even though Dr. Granpeesheh isn't here, you can be sending in your questions live. I will stockpile them for next week. It's totally okay to do that. And anything that's non-clinical or something that you want a parent perspective of, send in those questions because I'll be here and Nancy will be here. We can answer questions. And anyway, so Samantha's going to show you how you can get in touch with us here. Our homepage is autism-live.com. Lots of things to do on that page, but if you click on the triangle that's on the computer screen, the live show will start playing, or the most recently recorded live show. You can tell if it's live or not because if you can fast forward, it's not live. I know, that just occurred to me the other day. It's one of those days, you guys. So we have to have a sense of humor about it, right? In any case, there is also the live feature on that homepage. It's the series of white boxes. If you put your cursor in the one that says your comment, all you have to do is type and hit enter. There is nothing that you have to prove that you're not a bot. You don't have to give a credit card because it's free. You're not even going to give your name or your address, although when you write inside that box, please give us information so that we can get a feel for where you are in the world and what it is that's particularly going on. We love to have conversations with you. I don't know if I say that enough because it's true. We absolutely adore it. So again, you're about to see a recorded version of Ask Dr. Doreen. Then we'll be back live at the top of the hour for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy with In the News and guests. It's going to be a good time. You're not going to want to miss it. But first, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have with us in the studio this morning live Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and we're thrilled to have you here.
So good to be back.
Well, I know you've been traveling and you have more traveling to do, but we're
2 more going.
Well, we're thrilled that you're here with us this
Thank
morning.
you.
For people who don't know and haven't watched the show before, you are a true expert in the field of autism. I believe the preeminent expert in the field of autism.
Thank you so much.
You've been in this field for more than 30 years. You were telling us last time that it's about to be, we're
40.
about to 40 years
Next
in
year.
this field. No one believes that. Let's face it, your facial cream is way too good. Nobody believes that. But you have all of that experience in working with individuals on the spectrum from very small children up through senior citizens. You have such a wealth of knowledge and you're a visionary in this field. I think largely because you're able to see it from all the different angles from the point of view of the very small kids who aren't able to communicate, the point of view of the teenagers, the adults, the parents, the caregivers, the therapists who are working with them, from the insurance companies and how they're funding things. You're able to look at it and put two and two together and figure out where we need to go and set us on the path. And we're all grateful
Thank you very much,
to you.
Shannon. Yeah, well, I try.
Well,
And
you know what?
I've
You
learned
do
a
more
lot
than
in
that.
40 years. I think it's just one of our benefits, honestly. I come to see so many other people who are just entering the field, and there's a lot that you learn nowadays, but 40 years of experience is really helpful. It teaches you a lot in this field. This is such a young field, and it has changed so much, and we've learned so much from our kids, and every child that I see, I learn something new.
Yes.
So it's every family. So it's kind of a cool place to be.
Well, we're grateful for you. We're grateful
you.
for the things that you have set in motion, like the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And also, we don't give you credit for this all the time, but you're the one who founded Autism Care and Treatment Today, the wonderful charity that has given away close to $2 million now in aid to families, which is truly amazing. So, and so many other things that you do on a regular basis, and boards that you have sat on, and ways in which that you help. We're grateful. And with all of that you find time to spend an hour with us and answer our viewers' questions is amazing. And
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
We adore you. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in here. And first I have to give the disclaimer, though, that there is no expert in any field that could give individual specific advice in this format. It's just unreasonable to think that. It does a disservice to the individuals. Usually you need to have much more interaction. But having said that, Dr. Granpeesheh takes the questions that you ask and that I ask and provides us with information from that base of 40 years of experience to help us to know where to go to next. So I want to jump in with a question that was emailed to us, and you guys always have the ability to email me directly, especially when you have a longer question and you want to get a little bit more in detail. You can email me at s.penrod, P-E-N-R-O-D, at autism-live.com. Okay, so this question came into us. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. You guys are doing a great job. All the information provided by Doreen is so useful. Skills for Autism and eye behavioral training are great. We're in Melbourne and doing ABA for my 3.5-year-old daughter. My daughter is nonverbal, and we are doing PECS with her. My question is, her understanding of language is slowly improving. Only now she can understand basic language. One of her programs in ABA is receptive labels, learning names of each item. She's not able to discriminate even between two items. We took a couple of months learning the names of each item. She's not able to, but she knows what she knows, the item's name, but she could not choose the correct one in random rotation. Is there any way to modify this program or make her understand the labels of each item? I am more concerned how she's going to learn names of colors, animals, fruits, and so on. Her program supervisor has now changed the program to 2D matching pictures, which she has already mastered. As we say, put with cup or put with shoe. Will this program be useful to her in learning the labels? Please help.
So no, I don't. You don't need to go back to a matching lesson. There's excuse me. There's this thing that we call, there's 7 steps when you go into discrimination training, and I'll tell you what the steps are right now, but it'll be a little bit difficult for you, because I think what would be helpful is, since you are on IBT, to go back to IBT. I think there's got to be a module on discrimination training and learn that, because there's a process when you start to rotate to receptive labels. So let's say, what are they? You have shoe and cup, I think, or
well, they were
let's
saying
just use those
for the
examples.
matching ones, they were doing put with cup and put with shoe.
So it doesn't matter. So you have 2 stimuli, shoe and cup, and the 7 steps are that you first starts with just mass trials of that one target, and so that would be shoe. And so you're doing mass trials of touch, shoe, touch, shoe, touch, shoe. That's step 1. Step 2 is you bring in distractors. Distractors are other objects that you never name. So you'll have shoe there, and you'll have, let's say, a pen, but you'll always say touch shoe. and you'll rotate, and you're still saying touch shoe, and you'll then bring in another distractor, like a piece of paper or whatever it is, but you'll still say touch shoe. So it's just an object that's on the table with shoe, and you could have 3 distractors, whatever it is, but you just want to make sure that in the presence of other things, shoe is solid.
And what we call that, when you're only working on the one thing, is a mass trial.
Yeah,
for
it's
people
a
who
mass
aren't
trial.
doing the jargon, who haven't tuned into the jargon, so that's called a mass trial. You're only working on them learning one thing ever, which is the shoe.
Right, but so the first stage is just mass trial. The second stage is sort of a mass trial with a distractor.
Okay.
So, and then you go, and now you've kind of mastered shoe on its own with a distractor. Now you put it away for a bit. Now you go to the second object, which is cup. So now you do the same thing with cup. So now you do mass trials alone with cup, and then you do mass trials of cup with other distractors. Not with shoe yet, just with other distractors. And you do the same thing until there's 100%, and you flip positions, and you put multiple distractors out and all that, and then you realize, okay, we know we have cup and we have shoe, and we're good to go. Now you bring one of the, so now you have 2 targets, but they've never been rotated with each other. So what you do is now you bring the target back, let's say shoe, and you'll have cup rotating with it, but you will not name cup. So you'll have cup on the table, and now cup, which is a prior target, is sort of acting as a distractor. So you'll have cup on the table numerous times, but you're only asking for shoe, 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 and cup is on the table. And then you put that away, and then you do the opposite. You have cup as the target and shoes on the table as a distractor, but you're not asking for shoe, you're just asking for cup. And that's the last stage before you do random rotation. Now you're finally ready to rotate cup and shoe, which means you'll have cup and shoe on the table. Once in a while you ask for cup, once in a while you ask for shoe. You randomly request those different things. Now, if your child gets stuck at that point, after you've done the 7 steps of discrimination, now you have other things that you can do. Like, for instance, you can put the item that you're asking closer to the child. So let's say I'm working on cup and pen, and what I'll do is I'll put them down and I'll say touch cup, and the child will get it wrong. So one of the things I could still do is I could do this. I could put the cup closer to the child and say touch cup, and children generally will go to the one that's closer. Sometimes our kids have a hard time crossing their midline, so you want to make sure that if the child is like always pointing to one side, you fix that problem separately. First, you have them learn how to point across, and then you want to make sure that the object is being prompted. There's many ways you can prompt. Like, for instance, you could say, you can make the other object, like the shoe, a much smaller. You can semi-cover it. You can point to the thing the child is. So there's a lot of you can use prompt strategies now. But, essentially you will be able to get, and that first phase of teaching the child discrimination training is one of the most important things. And it does lead to a lot more learning, and it's very, very important, and it'll help also with your PECS program, obviously, because what the child's doing there is discriminating between a bunch of different icons, hopefully. So do that. Look up the discrimination training module on IBT. It'll review all of this and help you quite a bit.
Okay, and I just want to say from the parent point of view, because experts such as Dr. Granpeesheh have done this so many times, that they're coming from a place of complete and total competence and confidence that it's going to work. And as a parent, we haven't seen it before. We don't know what it's going to look like, and we're worried, and it seems like it's taking a long time, and it does take a while. But one of the things that I always tell parents is watch the movie The Miracle Worker, and watch Annie Sullivan work tirelessly with Helen Keller, who can't see or hear what's going on, and how they work on doll and water and doll and water. Because there's a moment later on when suddenly, and I don't remember which one she understands first. I think she understands water first, but it might be doll. But when she gets one of them, and then she gets the second one, then it opens the whole world. But it takes forever to get the first 2. And you have to come from a place of patience, knowing your child is going to get it. But it's going to for one child it might take 10 times, another child it might take 100, another one might take 1,000, and accommodations and moving those things around, as Dr. Granpeesheh said. But it's going to happen. But you know,
Be
get those
patient with it
two.
and don't give up. Yeah, totally. Let me add to that.
Yeah.
Almost none of our children, very, very few children pick up the first two discriminations without doing the 7 steps. So if you haven't done the 7 steps, you just haven't done it right. So don't worry, it's not about your child. Almost, I want to say 95, 98% of our kids do get it as soon as you do the 7 steps.
There you go.
So it's a very clear procedure that you have to follow. That's why we made it, because it was very obvious to us that the kids were having a hard time getting to rotation.
Yes.
And so this became something that we could do. There's other tricks you can do too. If you go into the discrimination training module, it'll also show you about expanded trials. And there's lots of other things you could do to help the child remember the targets better, or understand the targets better. In the meantime, if it doesn't work, you come back and we'll talk about it, because when it doesn't work and you've done everything right, and your supervisor, by the way, should know this or should go back and do this, then we're going to look and make sure your child has sensory input abilities to actually be able to see the targets well, understand them well, they're clear, there's no visual issues, there's no hearing issues, all that too.
Right, there you go. But the one thing that they said was, I'm worried about when we get to colors. I think as a parent, you get so overwhelmed thinking, oh my gosh, if it's taking this long to learn these two things, cup and shoe, how are we going to get to the bigger things? But once they get it,
it's just
so
fast.
Then it's like this crazy moment where your child turns into a sponge, and you'll be so excited. So get ready to celebrate when your child gets this. It will be okay.
And you will still keep doing those 7 steps for a very long time with all of these. But right now, it'll take a long time to do the initial 7 steps. Later, the 7 steps go like this. Like, it'll be so fast because you only have to introduce it 1 or 2 trials. Children pick up very quickly using the right procedures.
Yeah, I always make fun of and say, to parents, and I tell therapists this too, that when we first started ABA and we'd waited and we were like, oh, okay, we can't wait to do this. We've seen amazing things. We'd seen Logan Shepherd and we were like, whoa, it's going to be great. And then when they were doing things like touch car, I remember going, touch car? What? This is how are we going to get him ready for college with touch car? Like, you can't picture how you're going to get to all these things, but it really speeds up. So I just want you to know that.
But so the benefit nowadays, Shannon, for I think parents who are already familiar, like this parents with skills, is that you get to see how everything builds on each other. Like in the old days, it was very hard for parents. I just met with a parent who was one of my old parents, right? And her daughter just finished her master's at the University of Edinburgh, which I'm very proud of. But we were talking about the early days. This is like early 90s. And we were talking about how many parents back then, so much of our efforts back then in California was just getting funding for the parents. So it was like back-to-back court dates. It was terrible. But so many parents would just come to my office because I had this huge board where I had written all the lessons and how they linked to each other, and how you had to start with something as basic as labels if you wanted to build on it, and you're doing perfect, because yes, you'll start with labels, then you'll do things like categories and you mention them, and then you'll do things like, descriptors like colors and big, small, et cetera, and actions, verbs, so that you can start making sentences. And, people, a lot of times, as you said, parents want to just be able to, say the entire first phrase and have the child respond that way or copy it, and that's just not how it goes.
Right. But it works. That's the thing that you need to know. Be patient and work, and then beginning it's a little bit slow, and then it will pick up exponentially.
And your child's only 3.5, which is fantastic. So... and you're doing everything, you're just great.
Just make sure you're doing enough of it. You want to double down on every waking hour and have something going on. You mentioned that you're using Skills, and for people who don't know, I just want to say Skills for Autism. Tomorrow on the show, we're having Eliana Fajeda to talk about a new product from Skills Living.
Oh my God.
Which is amazing. I've seen it, and for those of you who have older kids, you're just going to flip your lid. If you want to call Skills and ask questions, 877-975-4559. And you also mentioned Institute for Behavioral Training. So I want to tell people ibehavioraltraining.com. That's where you can purchase for very little money. I mean, like, because sometimes people go, well, what's very little money? We're talking sometimes $7.50 for a training that you get to do and do with your significant other and have your babysitting team do for $7.50 for all of you. It's amazing. Some of them are a little bit more, but there's nothing more than the cost of a book.
Yeah,
On the
$20
whole thing.
or something. They're
So,
like very, very
yeah,
inexpensive.
it's very affordable, and you can pick and choose what lessons you want to do. So you could go in and pick the one on discrimination training and do that. You're given the choice. There are trainings on there for professionals, for teachers, and for parents, and you get to decide which one you want to do. If you think that you can handle the jargon in the professional one, you go for it. If you feel like, that might be too much for me, pick one in the parent side. And you can gift those teacher ones to the teachers. I know a lot of people have teacher appreciation coming up. What a great gift to give them training that helps them to better handle your child in the classroom. And if you want to, and I know a lot of parents do this, you can spend your time on IBT so that you get a certificate. You can become a registered behavior technician, or you can get ready to sit for the test for a BCAT, which is a board certified autism technician. And then those are beginning therapists that work with your child. So I always had a sign on my bathroom mirror that said, GEMS team is only as strong as the weakest player, and I will not be the weakest player.
Yeah, that's
right?
awesome.
So you can do that for yourself, and it's very, very affordable. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back with more of your questions. We've got a bunch of stuff coming in on Facebook, and we've got a bunch of things that you guys had sent in the live feature, so stick with us.
For the month of September, I figured I'd show you guys how to make a task completion chart to help your kids get through the hardest parts of the day. Parents have been writing into our host, Shannon Penrod, the hardest parts of the day are waking up in the morning, after school, and getting ready for bed. Please keep in mind you can always modify the task completion chart to focus on the skills that your family needs most. The template we'll be using today to make the task completion chart you can find at facebook.com/autismlive. All right, let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are the template, cardstock, scissors, hole puncher, glue, pipe cleaner, Velcro, and photos or images. We find it more reinforcing for kids if you use images of themselves doing the task that you're trying to get them to complete. So what I have here to start off are photos of myself doing all the tasks that we're going to add to our task completion chart today. The first step you're going to be doing is printing the template from facebook.com/autismlive. I have it here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim at the top. We don't need that, that's just totally excess. Now that I trim my 3 templates, I'm going to label each one with a different part of the day that we're focusing on, such as waking up, after school, and getting ready for bed. Now that I finished labeling the templates with the appropriate time of the day, I'm going to attach the photos that go with it. For bedtime, the tasks I chose were getting ready for school, putting away toys, putting on pajamas, and brushing teeth. Now repeat this for all the rest of the day. Now that I've added the photos to the template, I am taking this along with my heavy cardstock to hold all my tokens. I'm going to line them up and make 3 hole punches. I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and attach the pages together with it. We're almost done putting this together. Next, I'm going to take my Velcro. I'm going to put them underneath each picture. And then I'm going to add 4 on the very edge too. Now that I've attached the rough side of the Velcro to the template, now I'm going to take the softer side and add these to the tokens. You can use whatever you want for the tokens, whatever your child finds reinforcing. They could be stickers, images, spacemen, Pokemon, whatever they like. Before you use your task completion chart, it's really important that you do a preference assessment to see what your child finds reinforcing that day. Once you have that established, then you can tell them the rule for how this task completion chart works. So every time they get one of their tasks completed, they add a token to it. And the way the task completion chart functions is like a token economy. So after they put a token under each one of these tasks, they can trade it in for their reinforcer for the day. Now that you've made your task completion chart, hopefully your child will be able to use it on a daily basis and help them through those difficult times of the day. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us, and she's answering your questions in real time. Please send your questions in. We get to this point in the program and we have to, figure out and prioritize. So I want to go to this one next. Could you please help me? My 3-year-old is so determined to eat, and they said but as I read, I think what they're saying is sand. Because as you read forward, this is such a shame as we live close to a beautiful beach, and he so enjoys running free and paddling in the water and climbing over the stones. He has severe autism, but with the help of your advice and strategies, he is now looking at me and can follow and comply for many things. He even puts his arm back into the seatbelt when I ask. He has learned some words now, but over sand there is no dissuading him. He dives down and gets it no matter what I say and do. It's such a shame I can no longer take him to the beach. Thank you so much for all your help from your wonderful program. Jargon of the day is a wow. We love jargon of the day too. Don't know what I would do without your help, as we are not in the U.S. and have no services here. And we're sending you hugs.
Absolutely. And don't worry, this is, believe it or not, fixable. So, but it's a step-by-step thing, and you have to, like anything else with ABA, I think you need to shape it, and it'll be a gradual process. So let's say give yourself a couple of months, and just this is the main thing you'll be working on. But the concept is, there's two things about this, and I don't want to forget to say the sensory aspect of it. So, one of the things, behavioral will deal with getting rid of this behavior, but the main issue is, why is this behavior happening? And I'm pretty sure your child probably has other sensory input issues, certain disintegration. I don't know what it would be. Like, he possibly, if he's into sand, he's also into playing with water and stuff like that. But let's try to, and perhaps he's into trying to figure out the texture in his mouth. How old is he? We don't have, 3-year-old. So, one of the things that happens a lot of times with babies, and I know everybody's seen this, is that babies, in order to identify or just to become familiar with something, they'll put it in their mouth. And that's one of the early ways that we sense things, is through our mouth. Whether or not that is what's happening here, I really don't know, but we never want to just get rid of a behavior without knowing what the function of it is. Like, really, what is the function of this? Is he trying to figure out something about the sand? Is he nutritionally deficient, where he's getting maybe salt from the sand? I don't know, but those are the things I would like you to look into, because it would be important to make sure that if there is a nutritional deficiency, we replace it, we take care of it. So, like, look at this as a sign. Sometimes our kids don't do that with sand, they do with chalk or with, and so it's different nutritional things that they've found in that product. Or it could be a sensory type of stimulation that they're looking for, in which case you find something else that resembles the sensory stimulation of sand, and we produce that in his food, so he's getting that sensory stimulation. So figure that out. But in terms of behaviorally, what you need to do is, you will start with very, very baby steps, as I always say. So you take him and get help if you need to, because he's fast. But go to the beach, and you will try very hard to block him from taking sand and putting it in his mouth. And the way to do that is literally to keep him busy with things that are contrary to the ability to do this. So this is kind of like, let's say, how does he do this? First of all, he'd have to bend over and reach the sand, pick it up in his hands, and put it in his mouth. Okay, so there's a number of things you could do. For instance, you could put mittens on. If you have mittens on, you can't really, maybe it's harder to pick up sand. So that's one thing you could use as a block. Another thing is you literally hold his hand and don't let him run off. You hold his dominant hand in your hand so that he's not able to release it initially. So initially you will put as many constraints as possible so that he cannot get the sand to his mouth, okay? So that's called blocking. And then what you will do is very, very gradually you will reduce these particular blocks so that he's more and more free. Now, the first opportunity where he actually does pick up a piece of sand and put it in his mouth, you leave the beach. You immediately leave the beach. So the punishment for doing that is it's a response cost. He will give up the ability to be on the beach if he puts the sand in his mouth. And you will do this 100 times, and it doesn't matter until he realizes that the only way I can play in the beach is if I don't need sand. As soon as you start giving him some freedom gradually, you'll replace it with appropriate sand tools, toys, maybe take him to the water, whatever. You will still need to keep him busy with other things. So you can't just like expect him not to go back to a bad habit without giving him something else. Ideally, if we figure out the function of this thing, if we can figure out, let's say, he really enjoys that kind of texture in his mouth, then you'll go ahead and maybe get yogurt and you'll put, I don't know, some other, like crushed nuts in the yogurt, and then that is a similar texture. Then ideally, as you're sitting on the beach, you'll allow him to eat his yogurt. So you want to replace the sensory need or satisfaction or the function, whatever it is he's getting out of that. But in the meantime, you also want to prevent him from eating the sand. So, that's how you do it. Every time, if he ever gets to do it, you'll leave the beach, and in the meantime, you'll introduce him to the beach very, very gradually, removing those prevention blocks very, very slowly. And as you remove them, you will keep him busy, keep his hands busy with other activities, toys, things that will keep him occupied and keep his hands busy.
There's a word where Jack Riley is running off when they go outside, and he loves to go outside, loves the break. And this is a different behavior, but the way in which they dealt with it is very similar. And if he let go of his mom's hand on the sidewalk, they would instantaneously come in. And I think it might be worth it for you to watch that and to see what the parents' reaction, because they don't enjoy it.
No.
They're like, this is terrible, and we have to bring him right in, and it really is miserable. And then you get to watch them go through the progression, and within a couple of days, Jack Riley is back outside enjoying, and it's fun again. But he tries to bite his mom when she says, all right, now we have to go inside, and she's holding on to his hand for dear life, and he tries to bite her hand. So I think it's worthwhile to see another family going through that similar sort of thing and see that they survive it, and that they're like, and the dad is like, I don't want to do this, it's not fun, this is not working. And then a week later, the dad's like, this is amazing. Our lives are different as a result. We can go places again.
So it's really important that thank you so much for bringing that up, Shannon, because he might react very negatively to you wanting to take him in each time. And that is a big deal, and you're going to have to be very strong when that happens. He might throw a tantrum. He might try to bite you, hit you, whatever it is, but he's a 3-year-old, that's why it's very important to do it now. And what you do is you simply pick him up and take him in.
Yeah.
And it's not really about the discussion. I don't really know what his level of language is at this point, but assume that whether or not he understands you telling him don't eat the sand, it clearly is not effective. So the behavior change occurs when you change the antecedents and consequences, and that's exactly what we're doing in the protocol that I just mentioned. And the consequence is just losing access to the beach. And he will learn that if you do it consistently enough.
Absolutely. And don't forget, you can watch the A Word. If you go to our YouTube page, it's one of our playlists, and you can click and find all the episodes so that you can see that. I want to move on to the next question. Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, I hope you can help. How do you teach a 7-year-old not to touch people and to keep a distance social distance. He touches people when he wants to get their attention, even physically turns their head towards him.
Yeah.
He also leans on people and can stand too close. He's very able, high functioning, and we did social stories on this and practiced it at home and reinforced, but he still struggles with this. Would really appreciate your advice and lots of love from the UK. It's the international show today.
That's awesome.
Love
Thank
it.
you so much. And this is it's funny that you like one thing that you could do is the same kind of procedure. He said you say that he's very social, so his reinforcer is access to these people. If he touches them, you remove him from the environment. He doesn't have access to the people anymore, and that will probably be a big deal for him. And so first you start with that because you want to make sure that he understands that it's not okay to touch people. Then once the touching is under control, and the touching is really, it's going to be it's not going to be hard. He's a high functioning child. He's going to get it pretty fast that, hey, if you touch anyone, we can't stand here. So if he touches, you immediately leave. Make sure when you leave, you don't do something more fun. Like in other words, he loses access to social fun activities. And then, as I said, and then also now you want to go back and you want to teach him what is an appropriate distance. That I think with some of our kids is just harder for them to, it's hard for him. He possibly, I'm guessing, also has some issues with theory of mind, perspective taking. So from his perspective, it's hard for him to understand other people's perspective of how they feel. In the long-term solution to this, and I don't know if you're using skills or not, but if you are, I would go back and start with very early perspective-taking lessons, because that's going to influence many aspects of his life. One of them would be this, which is, if you want friends and you want people to like you, you have to be able to think as they would. You have to be able to put yourself in their position. And if he was able to do that here, he would be able to tell that people don't like it when he touches them, when he turns their head, and so on. Now, which makes me think, if you have this, let's say familiar people that he does that to, let's say your friends, siblings, I don't know, people who he comes into contact quite a bit, make sure you tell them that if he gets away with it and does that, that they actually tell him, I didn't like that, that wasn't nice, and that they go away. Because it's important for him to be able to, he's not reading social cues. This is what's happening here. So he needs to be able to look at their social cues, and that gives you actually an opportunity to work on social cues with him and to be able to teach him, look, people don't like it when you do that. So, you're approaching it from numerous different angles, teaching him behaviorally, very basic, you lose access to people if you do this. Kind of from a social perspective, where you're helping him understand the social nuances and how to read people's frustration or facial expressions. And then you're teaching him the perspective taking, which is the root cause of this, which is kind of, this is, I might feel comfortable being that close, but clearly they don't. So, and this, all of those things together, all of those things you can find in skills. I don't know if you're in skills, on skills, a user or not, but please do go there. Skills is, and if I may take a moment now that we're talking about skills, skills is fantastic for higher functioning children. It's fantastic for beginning children as well, but I believe it's one of the very rare places, we don't have too many resources in the world for high functioning children, and skills is fantastic because we have those, there's skills cognition, which is the cognitive curriculum, the social curriculum, the executive functioning curriculum. Those curriculum areas are spectacular. You will really benefit from the cognition curriculum because that's all about perspective taking. So that was my thing on skills. The other thing is, since Eliana is going to be here and talk about skills for living, is that what it's called now? Skills living?
Skills
you guys,
living.
Please, if you know anyone who is older than 10, 8, 10, and all the way through adulthood, please tell them to watch that program. First of all, it is a spectacular, the content is absolutely spectacular. And I want to thank Vanessa Alvarez, who worked very, very hard on that. And then also the design of the new skills is so nice that we're going to be changing skills to look like the design of the new skills, because it's a much friendlier user interface. So please do come on board tomorrow if you can to watch that. I will.
Yeah.
I'm dying to see it because I've seen it a few times and she just keeps making it better.
It's really incredible. And so that'll be tomorrow in our second hour on the show. I want to go quickly to a Facebook question. Anthony has written in and said, "Hi, can you help us? Our son will not eat anything apart from unhealthy food. Any tips to introduce healthy foods?" Anthony doesn't tell us an age, but
yeah. So so that's a very broad question, Anthony. But one of the things we do in ABA is feeding programs. And it's they have very specific procedures, so I wouldn't be able to give you a quick answer here, but I'm wondering if there's feeding modules on IBT. There might be. There's a lot of procedures for feeding, and they literally have to do with what I was just talking about, which is shaping behavior. And essentially what you do is you use favorite foods as reinforcers only. So the things that he likes to eat become the reinforcers, and then you take unfavorite foods or foods that he doesn't like, and you start with tiny, tiny morsels of them, and then you reward with the favorite foods. So basically, you will give the child one teaspoon of a food he doesn't like, and then allow him to have the food that he does like. And then 3 days later, when he's willing to do that, you'll make it 2 teaspoons for the food that he likes. Then you make it 3. And as you're increasing the food that he doesn't like, you will decrease the reinforcer, which is the food that he does like, until there's a balance there. And generally speaking with kids, and then of course that's just one food now you've introduced, so now you have to do it with the second food and the third food, and you broaden the diet that way. And generally speaking with kids, let's say on a plate, there's going to be a few items they don't like and a few items they do like. And we all have had that when we were kids, eat your veggies before you eat your dessert or whatever. And so that's kind of the goal that you're shooting for. But it's a process and you will get there. And I'm pretty certain there's video footage that we've done of feeding programs, and hopefully they're on IBT.
And we've done a lot of shows on feeding here on Autism Live. You can search for them on our YouTube channel. YouTube has changed things recently, and so it's really hard to get into our archives. We're kind of changing the way we're having people search. Right now, if you search, just go into a Google search and search Ask Dr. Doreen, a page will come up that is different from this, and it's a card page, and what it does is gives you topics. So you can search tantrums, and then under tantrums, it will give you like 15 different times, and it'll show you what specific question Dr. Granpeesheh answered about tantrums. When you click on it, it takes you directly to that video in that moment.
Cool.
So we're looking at doing that with all of our videos, and I'd love it if everybody who watches the show takes a minute, goes and tries that out. Search a topic that you like, and then let us know how it works for you, because we're trying to find the best way to be able to give you
information. Yeah.
Yes, so that you can search whatever topic you want and
idea.
be able to find. So give us some feedback on that. Try it out with the Ask Dr. Doreen and let us know what you think, because there's a section on feeding where you can see all the times that Dr. Granpeesheh has talked about feeding on the show.
You might even want to just Google my name and feeding. I've done a bunch of conferences where I've spoken about feeding, and I know a lot of these conferences are still online. So
there you go.
You can find that.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come and get through as many questions as we can as we get down to the last few minutes. Stick with us.
Being part of this community is really important to a mom with a son like Jackson, because it really does take a village, and you need so much support, you know, to help bring out all of the amazing qualities and skills and talents that our children have. So I'm just very grateful to everybody who was a part of this.
I think it helps with all sorts of that self-esteem, social skills. They seem to communicate a little bit with each other, and they had a lot of friends. The helpers were phenomenal, and I think the social skills for sure, because they, you know, they worked together and they did a couple of group things across the floor, and they sang songs together, and I yeah, for sure, I think it's a really huge deal. A great program.
What programs like this show is the person is in front of what we call today a disorder. I think what we're finding is that these sorts of brain challenges that make people unique can actually be gifts in ways we haven't discovered in the rest of society to bring them out. So when you see a program like this and you see the kids dancing, having fun, and making up jokes, making up the story. I was here when they did that. That was so amazing to watch, because they were all focused, they were all present, they were all laughing, they were all getting into the creation of this story. And that to me sort of broke the barrier to say, no, first we're dealing with people, and then we're dealing with the challenges.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
Almost there.
We're coming to that, but right now we're here fabulously with Ask Dr. Doreen, and she's answering your questions in real time. So I want to get to this question. My son is on the spectrum and is 11. He is on a stimulant for his ADHD and attends the local elementary school and does well academically. He has access to many activities and electronics he enjoys, but never seems happy, always agitated and anxious, sometimes even when doing activities he enjoys. He has very little homework and no chores, and he has a lot, and this is all in caps, of free time doing the things he likes after school. What can we teach him to help him be more calm and happy? He also struggles with friendships at school and has several kids he declares as his rivals and gets really worked up when he sees them. Any tips for helping him with that would be appreciated.
Okay, so it's hard to advise on this, but because I don't really know your child, but I just want you to think about something, and I don't know how long, you know. Okay, back up. He's on a stimulant, and what you're wishing for him is to be calm. I just need you to realize that those two things are separate from each other. The number one side effect of the ADHD medications is anxiety, the number one side effect. So if you take those medications, you will feel unbelievably anxious and agitated. So my first advice is to look at the medication that he's on. Sometimes a lower dose might work. Sometimes you don't really even need the ADHD medication if you're doing other behavioral types of intervention. I'm not one that's against ADHD medications by any means, but it really concerns me when kids have anxiety and agitation from it. So I would really recommend that you consult with your physician about that first, and tell the physician that the medication is causing anxiety and agitation. And then please don't allow the physician to then add additional medications to balance it out. Just try to reduce the stimulants if you can. In terms of behaviorally, and this whole thing with rivals and so on, that's just that seems to me like he lacks a deeper understanding of levels of relationships. And clearly when we see people as, it's funny, it's like he's kind of on a childish level explaining something that's a very deep concept. We often feel very agitated and anxious when we perceive people around us as competition. And that is what he's expressing. He sees them as rivals. So somehow he's not seeing them as friends. And that is a series of kind of more advanced cognitive behavioral programs that a good ABA program could teach him, is like, what is a friend? What is an acquaintance? If a child disagrees with you, that doesn't make you your enemy. It doesn't make him your rival. The real definition of rival, because really there's nothing they're competing for there. That's a lot of work that should be done, which will just give him a greater understanding of relationships, friendships, etc. A lot of this stuff is in skills if you want to look there. And I think that that's really where you should look. Of course, there are also calming behavioral techniques or psychological techniques, like teaching children how to walk away from something and like breathe and calm down. Teaching children how to, physical activity, by the way, is a way that tends to increase endorphins and reduce anxiety. So a lot of kids who have anxiety tend to very, very much enjoy working out heavily because it reverses that feeling. So that's another thing you could do. I mean, but I honestly, I think it starts with the medication.
Okay. And I noticed that, when in saying that he has very little homework and no chores, and all that opportunity to things, at 11, there's a part of me that says, too, we've been doing a lot of shows about employment and talking about this disparity that with our kids, we don't put the demands on them that other kids get put on them to get them ready.
Yeah.
So, maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing to put some demands on this child with homework and chores.
Yeah.
Am I totally?
Absolutely. I think you keep him busy, but here's what happens also with kids that are like anxious and agitated. Shannon you might have a very good point here, is that if he's just, in other words, if they have too much free time, they start to, they worry too much about things, right? I mean, you don't want a child to have just free time and start getting really anxious and agitated about the future, and then it turns into apprehension and way worse things. So yeah, if you can fill his time with activities, that's a good thing. But make sure that you don't, I don't think it's a good idea to fill his activity with things that are demand-based right now, because it will increase the agitation. It'll increase, if you place demands, he will probably have a negative reaction initially. If you're going to start him doing chores, I'm not sure it's the right time right now. Maybe you want to get the medication under control first, or the agitation. I would fill his time with rewarding activities. Sometimes for our kids, if you teach them how to do chores and they do it in steps and you help with it, it becomes quite rewarding, because one of the things he might like is like having a neat environment around him. I don't know. And those types of things will become rewarding. But at this point, I think what you need to do is really figure out what's going on with the agitation because of the medication, but then also try to do fun activities that fill his time.
Okay. So this first one, Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, my son was diagnosed with ASD and he goes to regular ed kindergarten. His teacher said he's doing well, except that he totally refuses to do the pledge, and he gets overly silly with another boy in class. How do we handle this? And thanks.
Okay, well, I mean, that's just, all you really need is just the someone in school who can focus on that time frame. So whether it's an aide or a teacher's aide, or somehow you arrange to have a therapist, we call them shadows. You have someone in that environment, and then really what it is if he gets silly, he either is removed. I don't know if he likes to do the circle time. I assume it's a fun time, which means that's why he's getting silly. So basically it's the same thing. You remove him when he's acting silly, place him back in. But you want to make sure that you're not removing him, taking him outside and allowing him to run around and have a glorious time. No, if you remove him, you go and wait in the hallway and then you come back when circle time's over. That's one thing. Separating from the other boy is another thing. Working on it at home is an important thing, because I think sometimes we just assume that our kids will pick up stuff and we haven't prepared them for it. So at home, if you have an ABA program, if you have someone who can help you with this, you really just want to mimic circle time, and you want to discontinue and remove all reinforcers if he starts acting silly, and reinforce heavily when he doesn't. That is very important. You do it at home, you do it at school. If he actually gets through, circle time and he's not acting silly, then you will reinforce him heavily. Now, another way to look at this also is if you start the circle time procedure at school, if you're even just doing it there, and you are able to stand right next to him and tell him, okay, we're going to behave, or just mimic what we just did at home. And, you want to shape the behavior, so progressively longer periods of time should be reinforced. So maybe if circle time's, 15 minutes, or I don't know what it is, you would probably want to reinforce his good behavior every 2 minutes by giving him maybe a sticker on a sticker chart, so that at the end of 15 minutes, he's gathered X number of stickers and he can get a bigger reward, whatever that may be. So you want to reward the good behavior, prevent the bad behavior as much as possible, and you can prevent it by either practicing at home and then having him model it at school, redo the whole thing at school, or standing right next to him and controlling him, or removing him when he behaves badly.
And about refusing to do the pledge?
Yeah, so the pledge will then be part of the whole thing that you do at home, and you will practice it. And that's not going to be a very hard thing, I think, because you can just have him start by doing a section of the pledge, reinforce him heavily, increase the length of the pledge, reinforce him. I don't know if the child reads. You could always prompt him. Maybe he's refusing to do it because he doesn't remember the pledge. I don't know what the reason is.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to refuse not to do. Now, the other question was, good morning, what are your suggestions for what you refer to as attention-seeking behaviors in the classroom? I'm getting notes home from school saying my son is crawling around the room, making noise, and trying to get kids to laugh at him, but he ends up in school suspension and misses classes. He sees the school psychologist for self-regulation skills. He can tell me what they are, but he says he forgets them when he's frustrated. What can we do to get him to use them in the heat of the moment?
So really, we need someone in the classroom with him to try to prompt him and remind him, because clearly he's not able to think of the correct techniques and things that he's supposed to do at that moment. But more importantly, I want to ask you, what leads everyone to believe that he's on the floor and doing these things in order to get the kids to laugh at him? What if he was doing this in order to be removed from the classroom? Because then he is getting what he wants. So my recommendation would be to not remove him from the classroom, but actually have him sit up and sit in a corner and have to pay attention. That requires someone to be in the classroom with him.
Okay. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but we thank you so much for being here.
It's always a pleasure.
Sun's coming up.
How do you spell apple?
A-P-P-L-E.
We went to the mall last night and got him some new shoes, and he rode the carousel, and I watched him for like a half hour, and you would never guess he wasn't like every other kid in there, except he was smaller than a lot of them. They run around with
That's so funny.
reckless abandon.
So funny.
That's so funny.
Hey, what color do you want? Look, I have green, yellow, and pink. What color? Yellow. So what do you say? Yellow. Yes, you can. Close. There we go. Oh! Uh-oh! Should we make him stand? Should we make him jump? Here, let's make him jump. Ready? Boink! Uh-oh. Look, what is that? See, it's a footprint.
It's a footprint.
It's a footprint. Cool, you want to do it again?
Take it.
While Jessica and Jack Riley are playing with Play-Doh, they are working on his fine motor skills. They include pincher grasp for picking up food, rotating the wrist for clasping and opening the door. Having fine motor skills are needed for daily living tasks.
Oh, coolness. Wow.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Whose birthday is it? Say it's my
It's my
birthday.
day.
Say birthday. Say
Birthday. It's my birthday. It's my birthday.
Yeah, how old are you?
It's my.
I'm
3.
Yep, you're 3. Do this. Say 3.
3.
1, 2. Look. 3 fingers. Look. Right here. Look. 1, 2,
3.
3. 3 fingers.
5 fingers.
Yeah, well, yeah, technically you do have 5. What is that?
I love it.
He's wearing a blue
Hat.
and a
Green.
hat and a
Red hat.
hat and a oops! He's not wearing a hat.
Yellow hat.
Yeah, it's a yellow hat. Red.
Red shirt. Blue shirt. Yellow shirt. Green shirt.
Yeah, oops! He's wearing it upside down. It's
It's a hippo and dog.
good. It's
It's a rabbit and frog.
good.
It's a pig and cow.
Very good. I had a question for you. Why is tacting important? Tacting is important because it helps with language and conversation too. When we first start off, we just have him identify labels.
It's a ladybug.
And then we move into frames, like adding article adjectives to it, like it's the dog. What is it? Say it's. Yeah, it's a chicken. And then now we're having him add 2 objects. So he has to say it's a blank and a blank.
It's a pig and cow.
Very good. And then we'll move on to like add adjectives in front of the words too. So he, like what he does already, he'll say like it's purple socks. It's a red shirt.
Yellow suit. Blue suit. Red suit.
Just to help expand his language skills a lot more. Let's go, Jack Riley. You want to copy Suzanne? That's hilarious. That's so funny. You guys are so funny. Look at you guys. Are we buddies? Are we twins? Here, give your hand. You guys are so funny. What are you doing, Jack? Are we sitting? Yeah. I think you are thirsty. Let's get you some water. So cute. You even brought the chair over and everything. Funny. Come on, let's get some milk, Jack. Say, come on, Suzanne. Okay, let's go.
Cow.
Too much laughing and giggling in here. That's a good thing.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and thrilled to be here with my good buddy
Thrilled
Nancy.
to be here with you, my friend.
And glad to have you back. We did mention last week you were away for sad occasions, and we're sending our love to Gina, Miss Gina, if she's watching, dear friend of yours whose husband passed away.
Yes.
glad that you were able to go and be with her.
Me
But
too.
I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be
Selfishly,
back.
I'm
Good to be
thrilled
back.
to have you back. And we've got a lot to cover in this show.
We do.
We've got 3 fabulous, powerful guests that are going to be
Elaine
with
Hall
us.
from the Miracle Project will be here.
We love
and
her.
Lori Rubin Haber and Linda Pedrera from Raising Ross, a book that's come out about
you've got the
raising an
book right there.
autistic son. Yeah.
Yes, a very interesting book meant to be an inspiration to families. And so we're going to be talking with them a little bit later on. We're going to start out with some in the news.
Yes.
And should we start with the theme parks?
Yes,
Start with
yeah.
the best of the best news.
Right.
Because summer is upon us, almost.
Almost. I know,
Almost.
which strikes fear in the heart of me and many other moms.
Yes, and I'm in the other camp where I'm like, whoa, it's almost summer, because I'm a control freak. And I don't get enough control during the school year.
Okay.
I'm just being honest about that. I don't have control over my schedule. Everything is geared towards his schedule, and I love the summer because we get permission to do things that I don't really have permission. I don't give myself permission to do the rest of the year.
Okay.
Like sit and read a book in the middle of the day.
Really? Okay.
Man, that's good times to me.
Okay.
And I'm not a beach person. I'm
Right.
not even an outdoors person. I love the outdoors, but I'd like the view from a screened porch.
Okay.
I don't like bugs. I don't like that. But to be able to sit on a nice cushiony chair at a pool or whatever and get to read a book in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
that to me is high,
Okay.
like craziness.
I
But-
just had what fills me with dread is just the schedule, how to
Yes.
get my son scheduled, because he needs to be scheduled and he needs to have somebody with him all the time.
Yeah, maybe like I love to make schedules. Maybe I should just make a schedule for you.
Maybe you should. I had made it. I've written it down in pencil, but
I have, I'm going to get it during the break. I have from a couple of summers ago, because I was just cleaning my office, and I have a sticker chart that is to line up Jem's Day from a couple of summers ago. I'll bring it in. I'll share it with
Okay.
everybody. But during the summer, some people like to take a vacation and go to an amusement park. Now, we're talking to autism families, and so there's a lot of people going, ha!
Yeah,
you know,
right,
like
right.
as if there was a way
like
that
I
you
could
do that.
really do that, right?
Right. But I have to say that many of us have taken this on and said, nope, we are not going to be let out of the amusement park thing. And I love going to amusement
I know
parks.
you do.
I absolutely do.
I don't, but you do.
I have, but you say that, but I dragged you to Knott's Berry
You
Farm
did, and we had a
once,
good time.
and we did have a
We had
good
a great
time,
time.
didn't we?
We
And
did.
Wyatt had a great time.
Wyatt had a great time.
I thought it was fabulous. So at some point, and you weren't with us, but I have taken your son to Universal Studios, and we had a good time then.
Right.
So I'm just saying, maybe we need to. What don't you like about amusement parks?
I just don't like the kind of the sensory overload of them and the waiting in line for rides and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Well, and so we're going to talk a little bit in the Huffington Post this last week. They had an article, 8 theme parks changing the game for guests with autism. And I think it's a great article for people to read and look at if you're thinking about going to amusement parks. And
it's
it
in the
highlights
parenting section.
And it highlights several different amusement parks and the things that they offer and the things that they do and the ways that they're changing to be more accommodating about this. Now, in the past, I've done little snippets about these. Last summer, we went to 3 amusement parks in 4 days.
Okay.
We started at Legoland, then went to Disneyland, and then went to Universal. And I was doing a little bit of video blogging about them, and then wrote a little bit about it, because each park does things a little bit different. And I think one of the things that makes it successful going to a park is if you do as much research as you can beforehand.
Yes.
If you think back to when we went to Knott's Berry Farm, I had called and said, do you have gluten-free things?
Right.
And they had said yes, and you just have to ask when you get here. And it took us a really long time.
Right. We got gluten-free mac and cheese.
And
Gluten-free,
hot dogs
dairy-free.
with
Hot
the
dogs.
buns
Right.
too, which I was amazed. But it took us a really long time to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think everybody was getting I was getting a little peckish by the time, and I get crabby when I get peckish. So what I wished that I had made them be more specific with me on the phone about where in the park do I have to go and who do I have to talk to. It's really good to call the day before and say, if you have dietary needs, and say, who's the person that's going to be on tomorrow, and they'll tell you the language. I know at Disneyland that you can go any place and you just say, I need to speak to the chef, and it takes a couple of minutes for the chef to leave the line and come out and talk to you, but then you get something really fabulous. Disneyland worthy. So in any case, check out the Huffington Post, but I just want to highlight a couple of let's talk about which 8 theme parks.
Okay, we've got Six Flags Great Adventure. They're going to have an autism day. Well, they had it.
Right, May 3rd.
Yeah.
So it was just the other day.
So that was great. That's wonderful. Hats off to them.
And I know that Six Flags, they have a guest assistance pass.
Okay.
And if you go there, you do have to, the first thing that you do is stand in line and say to them, I have a guest assistant. It's very similar to the one that they have at Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you're going to totally get to skip the line, but they'll give you a time to come back so you're not stuck standing in line, which is a benefit, absolutely a benefit.
Legoland Florida Resort has actually, they have a lot of new features. They have quiet rooms with noise-canceling headphones, weighted blankets, and, of course, Lego building tables.
Which is fabulous. Legoland is one of the top places to go. It's funny because back before all the controversy, Legoland had sort of a guest assistance pass.
They have a Blue Hero Pass.
And after the whole thing with Disneyland changed, their pass changed, and it's the best pass. You can, I guarantee you that they will accommodate you no matter what your issues are.
Okay.
Fabulous, fabulous. Go to Legoland.
And the next one is something my son would love still at the age of 16,
right?
Which is Thomas Land, which is in Eddyville Family Theme Park south of Boston. It's a railroad theme park that features Thomas Land among its attractions. Yep, Thomas the Tank Engine. Thanks in part to an Eddyville employee whose son has autism, they have introduced more inclusive features. There's a sensory-friendly bathroom with manual flushing faucets and paper towels. They also have a quiet room with soft toys and a weighted blanket for kids who need a break.
Love it. And then Sesame Place, which we just talked about a couple of weeks ago, that they're the first theme park ever to be designated as a certified autism center. That's in Pennsylvania. And they're being very mindful as they put things into the park about making it inclusive for everybody. We absolutely love that. They have the low sensory parade viewing, and they have meet and greets specifically with different characters. So love Sesame Place. Now, I've never heard of Morgan's Wonderland. Had you ever heard of them?
No, I have not.
They're in San Antonio, and it's an inclusive theme park. And I think probably at some point we need to do a story on them. But they are specifically looking at people who have challenges. They give them free admission, and that includes autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, deafness, and blindness. And it is built by the parents with a daughter with a physical and cognitive challenge. So the park is specifically geared towards kids with special needs. We absolutely love it. It also, they have a water park where the water can be warmed for guests if it's too cold. How amazing is that?
That's great.
Absolutely love that. Dollywood, I was impressed to see Dollywood on the list. How fabulous is that? They have a calming room.
Right.
Absolutely love that. Holiday World in Santa Claus,
Indiana, which I didn't know there was such a thing.
Don't we need to go there?
Yeah.
I think that sounds fabulous. Lots of different things that they have. They also feature an annual play day there. And then the last one on their list is a place called Smuggler's Notch Resort, excuse me, in Vermont. Never been there either. All these little theme parks that I have no knowledge of. But they will tailor guest experience based on their needs. And they also include opportunities for socializing and seasonal activities like arts and crafts, guided hiking, kayaking, and skiing and snowboarding and Smuggler's Notch. So absolutely love that. Notice that Disneyland and Disney resorts are not on this list, which I think is a shame because for so long they were at the forefront. I will say that I've been to Disneyland many times since they changed the guest assistance pass, and it is infinitely doable. It's not what it was. It is harder for families, and you have to plan like you are a general and you're fighting a land war in Asia.
Okay.
You do. But if you can, then it's a very pleasurable experience and you can appreciate the park. But don't go the day of and think that you're going to be able to figure it out and make it work. Like, seriously, talk to somebody. They have all kinds of blogs and places online where you can get information or talk to not a Disney person, but an autism mom who's been there and done that and knows exactly how to work it. Figure all of that out beforehand. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in tears at the park. Okay, but go to a park. Do it. It's very doable.
We have a story about the autism rates jumping in New Jersey. It's the state with the highest rates of autism. in the country.
Yeah, and when you weren't here last week, Nancy, we featured an article written by a self-advocate in which it says, here are the autism rates, and so here is the proof that it's not an epidemic and the number isn't rising, even though the number is getting higher and higher. And one of the arguments was their argument is that there's always been people on the spectrum and it's just better diagnosis at this point.
Well,
but if that's
this
the
article
case,
says that's not true, actually.
well, that's I'm saying this other article, and the reason why I wanted to include this one today is if it was better diagnosis, what are we saying? That in New Jersey they're just supercharged?
Right.
That they have better diagnosis there than any place else? Why is it changing so much in
right.
New Jersey?
It's 1 in 34 children in New Jersey.
You know, and so what is that about? Is my question for the people who are saying it's not an epidemic and it's just these people have always been here and we're just diagnosing better. Who are the people that are pumping out these incredible psychologists in New Jersey that just seem to be able to diagnose so much better than anyone else?
Right, exactly.
Like, you know, what's up with that? Okay, so there's that. And then the other story that we have included here, because I thought it was amazing, that the North Valley Regional School officials are attempting to buy a permanent home for their special needs program.
And that's in New Jersey.
Yes. So, and I think that is it in New Jersey? I actually don't know that for sure.
Yes, it says, this is out of New Jersey. So it says, where it's northjersey.com is who the article, the photo was from.
But
Bergen County, isn't that New Jersey?
And you know, heaven help me that I'm not 100% positive. I'm geographically challenged.
It says from northjersey.com.
But we've seen so many different programs be in danger in the last couple of years, and some really good programs go away. And I thought it was very heartening to see that they're stepping up to make sure that this program doesn't go away, that it has a permanent home, and
the parents are thrilled. It serves children ages 3 to 21.
Amazing. Amazing. So in any case, we've got great guests. Thrilled that we're gonna take a break and then have Coach E, Elaine Hall from the Miracle Project. They've got a new show that's opening in just, I think it's 3 weeks from yesterday.
Okay. 185 Wilshire Love Story. So is she here to talk about that?
Yes. And hopefully we'll get her to talk a little bit more about Please Stand By, the film that she was involved in. They just were at the Art Fest and had a screening there, and it was pretty exciting. Great. All right, so stick with us after these messages.
Hi, I'm Kara Kaczynski, the Pocket Occupational Therapist, and we're here in Dallas, Texas at the Future Horizons Autism Super Conference. So the book is the Special Needs School Survival Guide, and it's everything you wanted to know about school. It is, okay, so it starts out with just different diagnoses that you might see, and then I explain them in clear terms, no technical jargon, and then each little diagnosis area has about, 50 to 100 activities that you can do at home or at school or cheaply and effectively. So it's just full of information that you can use right now. And the cool thing about it is at the end of every chapter are resources that you can use and access in the internet from a computer. And it's not just for kids with any diagnoses either. It's for kids that are just having trouble with handwriting or with dressing in school or transitions too. Well, both of my kids are on the autism spectrum, so it's important to me that when I learn something for other people, as I research it for occupational therapy, I want to try it at home. So then I take what works and I put it in a book, and what doesn't work, it's thrown out the window. And the other thing is I've just started to research for webinars, because our kids, if our kids are aging, so they start out these cute little babies with autism, and now they're getting to be teenagers and young adults, and we need help with modifying the environment for them, transition planning, and especially for IEP goal writing, for functional things that they can work on, not just handwriting, but then going beyond into the transition to young adulthood. Yeah, the misnomer at this point in the school systems is that we just do handwriting. So we are actually not handwriting teachers. We can modify or help rectify a grip that's inefficient. So if a child doesn't have that nice, pretty little tripod grasp, we can help to get that. However, when the kid's in 2nd or 3rd grade, then we look at efficiency. So if the grasp is efficient, if it's a quadrupod grasp, or if it's some kind of funky grasp, and the child can write efficiently, then we leave it alone. But if not, then we go to electronic accommodations. So OTs then can look at keyboarding and what kinds of keyboards would fit the student best. Also sensory processing, as the kids get older, it looks different. So we can look at sensory processing as it relates to function in the school. And then we also can look at behavior and transition planning. Other things we can do is work on seating. So if the child's having trouble sitting still in the classroom, we can modify that too. So not just handwriting, not just sensory, but we look at behavior, transitions, so anything that affects that student's school day. Right, so that's a really good question, because sensory processing disorder did not make it into the last DSM, which is the way that medical professionals classify disorders. So it did make it into the classification under autism, but sensory processing disorder is very confusing, and a lot of therapists treat it differently. So the general overview is that sensory processing is either a heightened response to stimuli in the environment or a too low, which is hypo, response. So if the student perceives every noise around them is equally as important, or every feeling, so I'm sitting here, I can feel the chair, my sweater, the noise around me, then it's hard to concentrate and focus in the classroom on what you're supposed to be paying attention to. So we would use something, maybe a suggestion could be a weighted lap pad or some kind of fidget tool for the student to fidget with, or we can even look at special positioning in the classroom, so preferred seating. Then with sensory, transitions can be hard because any unexpected bump in the classroom or in line can set the child off into a fight or flight, which is when they really have a tantrum and freak out. So when they're in a fight or flight mode, they may fly off the handle for no apparent reason, maybe just being bumped by another student. So it's our job to be detectives and to figure out why the student is having that meltdown. So my CDs were created for my own kids my son in kindergarten didn't like the fire drills. So he was afraid to even step foot into the classroom because the fire alarm may sound. Of course, the school's not going to say, oh, let's just set up the fire alarm for your son, Bob. So we thought, where can we get a fire alarm? So we went into a recording studio and picked a whole plethora of sounds that you couldn't control, fireworks, thunder, sirens, and we put them on a CD, and I wrote nursery rhymes, changing the words to blender, blender, it's okay, or different little, Mary had a little lamb is, something to do with thunder. So they're kind of fun, and that way the student can control the volume of the sound. It's not a listening therapy, there's no headphones involved. It's just a fun way to control sounds that you normally couldn't control. So they're for sale at my website, thepocketot.com.
Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself sometimes, why does my child have meltdowns? Well, the difference between tantrums and meltdowns, they're a part of typical development, but meltdowns are when things get a little bit more out of control, when even the child isn't sure what's entirely wrong. Generally with a meltdown, there's an environmental component. There's something else going on outside the child that's making the tantrum worse. It's really important that we start to be detectives and take notes and look around at the environment and start to figure out what are the things that happen every time your child has a meltdown. And lastly, it's important to get help. You really can't face these kinds of things effectively completely on your own. Tantrums, they're a part of typical development, but don't accept meltdowns as something that just happens. Make sure you get help and support. You might be asking yourself if your child has autism. Here we go.
And we are back. Well, Elaine's swigging down some water. We caught her. We caught you.
Uh-oh.
You've been caught.
We're back with Elaine Hall, the founder and executive artistic director of the Miracle Project. mother of a non-speaking autistic son, and a pioneer in the use of inclusive theater and film to bring out the often unheard voices of individuals with autism and all abilities. Hi, Elaine.
Amen to that. You are the queen of that. Amazing. And we want to start by talking about, you guys have a new show at the Miracle Project that's opening in just a couple of weeks. Tell us what the show is and all the details.
So our new show is opening on May 31st at the Wallace Annenberg Center for the Performing Arts in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
And the title is 185 Wilshire, A Love Story.
And tell us what it's about.
185 Wilshire, A Love Story is about young people with autism looking for love.
Okay.
And
so interesting. I had a text the other day from a young man with Asperger's talking about how difficult this dating thing is.
That's exactly what we tackle. And the show, we started in September with just an idea that we wanted to do something about love and trust and independence. And we had the students improvise who they really were and what they were feeling about those topics. Then we took all their thoughts and ideas and expressions and feelings and created this original musical.
Which is lovely.
That really shares their truth, which is exactly, I mean, the world of dating, I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of fake and false, the typical world. Like there's rules and there's games that you play and there's books to read. And what our protagonist discovers is that it's really about self-love first. It's about accepting and appreciating who we are, and then finding someone who sees us for who we are. And so we go through it's Dominique Brown, who you've had on your show before. So we go through his journey as a young man with Asperger, with autism, and his mom and dad and sister. So we have a whole sibling thing going. We have mom and dad needing to let go but wanting to hold on, all the things that we experience as moms. And the realization that for the young adult that he will always be somewhat dependent, but how does he find that independence within that interdependence?
Love it.
So we explore that, and finding love first in all the wrong places. And having his new friends teach him about dating, and it's all wrong, and he messes up. So there's all kinds of real life situations, just like the young man was talking about. That you know, and then really realizing that who do I feel the most comfortable with? Who do I feel the most connected with? And that's can go from there into, oh, maybe this is a person I should be dating.
Love it.
And you're having a gala, right?
We're having a gala.
Tell us
so
about
exciting. Our gala is on May 31st, and we are honoring just some phenomenal individuals who have been incredible supporters of the Miracle Project. First, Julie Weil and Beth Tischler, who are were our past co-presidents of the Miracle Project and Project Miracle and our foundation, and they helped us be where we are today. They really set us up as a strong organization, able to take funds and really be able to be of service to the community, and that's Julie and Beth. And then we're honoring Sasha Alpert. She is a producer at Boone & Murray Productions, and it was her vision that was able to produce Autism the Musical and get it to where it is, and Boone & Murray in their editing process, and sell Autism the Musical
Amazing.
So we want to honor her because that
that
really
was the beginning of so much for you.
It was the beginning. And then Gail Williamson, who is a talent agent, and she's representing a number of our kids.
That's
and
great.
She's just been so phenomenal in the disability world. So.
Right.
Well, that kind of dovetails into, it's been a very exciting year in the autism world, and especially in terms of Hollywood and actors on the spectrum being hired, and you've been a big part of that. We had you on the show before to talk about the movie Please Stand By, and that you were on set coaching, and there were several actors from the Miracle Project there, but there there's been more that's been happening with that. You guys were just at AuntFest. And there's season 2 of Atypical coming out, and there's so much to talk about there. So how have you been involved? How have some of the students from Miracle Project been involved with all that?
So, Shannon, it's been incredibly exciting. And,
it is.
You know, April Autism Awareness Month, we just returned from the United Nations, where I moderated a panel on exactly what you're saying, the media and autism. And this year's theme at the UN was Women and Autism, and it was just phenomenal. And part of the panel were 2 students from the Miracle Project.
Yes, who were they?
Brittany Sanders and Dominique Brown.
Okay.
And so individuals with autism who were on in the film Please Stand By. So that was incredible. And then a number of our young people are getting work in the business.
Yes.
Kobe, who you know, was on The Good Doctor.
Yes, Kobe Bird.
Kobe Bird. And then I've been so blessed to be coaching on the set of Atypical.
Okay.
So, pardon me. And that has been really extraordinary to be able to. Excuse me for
okay?
1
You need
second.
to get
Let me do water.
Yeah.
Cut to these guys.
Okay. We'll talk for a little bit. So you've been involved with advising on all of these wonderful shows.
And for people who haven't watched, there is season 1 that's available right now on Netflix for Atypical. It does deal with some very mature topics, so people have to be mindful about which kids that they want to watch, because the main character is a teenage boy who has decided that he would like to have a relationship that would involve sexual things, you know, various and sundry sexual things,
right?
The full gamut. And that's a very touchy subject, but I am so proud that it is being covered in a format in which our kids can see it. I think it's amazing. We've had Rabia Rashid on the show, the amazing creator. I also love how the story tells what the siblings' point of view is. What a great thing. And you know, I am thrilled. Last year they had Anthony Hawkes on the show, who is an actor who's on the autism spectrum. And it seems like in season 2, they decided not to double down, but to like quadruple down. So talk to us about who's going to be in season 2.
Okay, well, so I have to be a little bit.
Oh, do we have to be?
Just a little bit, but because I can't wait to come back on before the season begins.
Okay.
Do we know when that is?
More. So I'm not sure. It'll be sometime either late August or the fall.
Okay.
What I am privileged to say is that Atypical season 2 will have a whole group of young adults with autism.
Oh, wow.
High school kids with autism.
Okay.
And that are peer friends with Sam. And I love the show. I love the show from the beginning. And after working on the set, I love it even more because Rabia, Mary, all the producers from the top down, they walk their talk. They are just phenomenal human beings with such integrity and desire to present authenticity. Casey Wilson, who from Saturday Night Live, is on the show and plays a peer group facilitator, and she actually came to the Miracle Project last night.
Oh, interesting. That's great.
And
That's
did improv with our students and gave feedback for 185 We'll Share a Love Story. So she's just an amazing human being, and every single person, from the AD to the PA to the craft service to every single person. They're just wonderful people. And I want everyone to catch up on season 1.
Yes.
So you'll be ready for season 2.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Atypical. And we we were all at the AuntFest because Please Stand By was there, and also the cast of Atypical was there. So you know, we were on the red carpet with Kobe Bird interviewing people, and there were several people that he was interviewing, young actors who were saying that they were part of the peer group. So while maybe we can't tell you, you can go and look at our coverage of that. What was amazing to me is that I think a lot of people in the autism community have gotten so used to what the norm was that they were watching Kobe interview a young actress who is in that peer group, and they wrote in and they said, people with autism should be doing this. You should have hired people with autism to do this. And then everybody wrote back and said, pay attention, both of these people are. And it was such a watershed moment for us. We were like, yeah, no, that's exactly what you're watching. So we're going to have to change some of our defaults that I think the autism community is used to going, why isn't it? Oh, it is. Okay. All right. All right.
That's so phenomenal.
That amazing?
Well, that's really what we're committed to at the Miracle Project, is really changing perceptions. And I mean, Kobe, when he started, was very shy, very reserved, and he's grown and blossomed through theater, through music, and so many of our students. And I think that's something that I've been very involved in. The disability awareness in Hollywood, and what people don't realize is that all our young people with autism need is a chance and training. Now, this is something that's really important, and I'm not trying to plug us, but training anywhere really, because many programs, typical programs, don't understand the processing differences that our friends with autism have. And so they may not do well in a traditional acting class or singing class or movement class. And so what we're able to provide is really tuning into who that person is so that they can evolve to who they are intrinsically and allow them to blossom. And I think any program that is able to bring that out, you'll see more and more and more actors with autism.
Absolutely.
In interviewing on red carpets and having lead roles in shows, and there's more happening. It's incredibly exciting, and
but you are really at the forefront of this, Elaine. You have been at the forefront of this, and it must be nice that you're seeing not only your vision of this come to fruition, but to see the progression of these kids and how much progress they make. We know now that your program is evidence-based, that there is science behind it that shows that kids do make progress, so much so that you now have a social skills program. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm incredibly excited because we are now vendored through the regional center, which means that students can come to our classes and our social skills classes and build communication skills, socialization, life skills, job skills, and the state will support that.
Yeah.
And it's a game changer for us because we're able to reach more and more people. We have a class for non-speaking and minimally fluent adolescents with autism. We have a new class starting on Sundays because I know a lot of our kids don't have things to do on Sundays, so there'll be a social skills class on Sundays. And then we have our adult improv for interaction class that is now vendored through Regional Center. So we are incredibly excited to be able to...
Where can people go to find out information about all this?
They can go to themiracleproject.org.
Okay.
And find out information, and they can email Ryan at themiracleproject.org.
Okay.
And that will be able to provide that.
Excellent. And just to clarify, in these social skills classes, are they doing, we have this expectation of what social skills is, but you're putting it more in the realm of improv and theater, is that correct?
Thank you, Shannon. That's what makes the Miracle Project social skills so different. Yeah. Is that it's not about walk into a room and say hello. We don't do that. Our classes are integrated with all abilities, neurotypical and individuals with disabilities. So the peer role models mentor social skills. And we have the neurotypicals enter our world.
Right.
So then the neurotypicals gain understanding and compassion and curiosity and friends with those with and without autism.
Yeah.
And it's fun. I mean, we have kids that just talk about it all week long, and that's their favorite day of the week because we use movement and music and theater games and jokes, and we play around with when you're being annoying and when you're not being annoying, but they're in charge. So it's a real joyous way and natural way to learn social skills and job interview skills and work skills. So all of those things are what we're doing.
Okay.
In a creative way, in a fun, creative way.
It's very exciting.
It's so important what you're doing. So again, miracleproject.org.
Yes.
The Miracle Project.
And they can find out more about 185 Wilshire Love Story there as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've actually sold out
Okay.
for the gala.
Great. For the
And
gala,
for
you
the
sold
gala,
out.
we sold out the gala, which is a first and incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
Julia Moss, who you had on your show,
Yeah.
has just been doing brilliant work, and we're very excited. And I know because we have such wonderful honorees. And but we do still have tickets for June 1st and June 2nd and June 3rd.
Okay.
And I do want to say that on June 3rd, there's our on June 3rd, which is a Sunday, we do have a sensory-friendly performance, which means that the lights will be dimmed and the theater will be open for people to walk in and out. So if your child's first experience will be coming to a theater, the Wallace is very open, and we still have spaces on June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Okay. And just one last thing to say about the Wallace. What an amazing place. They do amazing things there, and it is so lovely that you have found a home there. I can't think of anything that makes more sense in the world. Every time I go there, I think about how fabulous it is that they recognized what you were doing and said, come and be here. I just want to say thank you to them always. Really important that people can come and see your shows there, but they have a whole host of amazing things that happen at the Wallace.
They do. The Wallace has become our artistic home, and the support that we get from that community. And for our students to be walking into this beautiful space where they're not included, they belong.
Right.
They're a part of the Wallace family. And Mark Slavkin, I just pinch myself that we're working with him and Heather Cooney, and the Wallace has been an incredible place to be.
It's fabulous.
Well, congratulations on all of these amazing
Thank
accomplishments,
you.
Coach E.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for coming by and
much.
talking with us today.
Always a joy.
All right.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with the authors of Raising Ross. Stick with us.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Lisa Ackerman with TACA. We're here with the TACA Facts, the most common questions in the autism journey, real-life questions and answers for your family. Oh boy, this one gets me in trouble. I get this question probably at least a dozen times a week, but how do I get my significant other on board? Whether it's having ABA done in your home, 5 days a week, speech therapy, or even biomedical intervention. I'm talking to you as a parent. It happened to me in the autism journey 3 years after diagnosis. I felt like I'd been through a war zone. I don't have pictures. I don't remember those 3 years. It was awful, and I'm surprised my husband and I made it out of that war zone. So here's some of the tips that helped me get through those 3 years and made it a better marriage, because he's the one I want to be with. First thing you need to do, and this goes for dudes and chicks, replace all the bathroom reading material. Now, whether you just had an independent evaluation with a neuropsychologist, or you just went to your doctor, your MAPS doctor, to help your child get through some serious medical issues, replace the labs, replace the neuropsych eval, and put that all in the bathroom. That's where we do our best reading and thinking, after all. It's one of the most simplistic things that you can do, but literally replace all the bathroom reading material. 2, very important that twice a year you have a meeting and you schedule it with your spouse to say, we're going to do the next 6 months of planning, whether it's just create a quick list, identify the issues or the self-stimulatory behavior or the things that you need to do to help your child with autism make the project. Let me give you an example. We created the Man Project. My son was becoming a teenager, and we found ourselves living a little bit in a rut, babying him a little too much. So what we did was we created a Man Project, and we identified a list of the skills and the things that we wanted my son or our son to learn. We agreed to it, and then we came up with a plan that we could activate over the next 6 months. And my next favorite. Don't forget to have sex with your spouse. Often you will feel disconnected with the person that you love. And if you're not connected with them, you're not connected with them in that way. You're not connecting with them in your autism journey. So my husband laughs, he calls me Dr. Ruth, so I'm giving you a coupon to please just go have sex with your spouse. That will help move things along, but also make it a little more cohesive in a house of chaos, living with autism. So hi, this is Lisa signing out as Dr. Ruth. No, I'm just kidding. Lisa Ackerman with TACA, and we'll talk to you at the next TACA Facts.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, we talked about the first step to empowerment. Accept and embrace this challenge. Sometimes you have people that support you in your denial. Maybe it's your husband, maybe it's your mother. When I expressed my concern to my pediatrician about Wyatt losing language around the age of 2, his response, maybe he's a late talker, he's a boy. Let's wait and see. But what about the temper tantrums? What about the fact that he put his head through the kitchen window? What about the bite marks and scratches all over my arms and chest? He said he's probably just frustrated that he can't express himself. Let's wait and see. But autism doesn't afford us that luxury. Of course, I was relieved with my pediatrician's reassurances, but I should have gone with my gut, because if I had, I could have gotten a diagnosis 2 years earlier. And I lost 2 valuable years that could have been spent on early intervention. And finally, when Wyatt was diagnosed, he was misdiagnosed. But of course, part of that was my problem too. I lied in a lot of those parent questionnaires so things looked better. I can't turn back the hands of time, but I can recommend that you face this challenge head on. Denial prevents us from walking a path we eventually will have to walk anyway. The sooner you face the truth, the sooner you can help your child. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep the faith.
Life-threatening aspects of autism. Unfortunately, autism can be a life-threatening condition. There are things that are associated with it that parents need to know about. First of all, there's the risk of seizure. It's heightened in people with autism. There's also the risk of what they call elopement, which means basically running away. Elopement can lead to things like exposure, drowning if they get near bodies of water, and maybe being hit by cars. Being hit by cars is certainly something that seems to be emerging as a problem in people with autism. So what do? We have to take certain steps to keep them safe to start. That means at home. Let's look around the home first. Where are your points of entry? Barriers, doors, windows, access to bodies of water, gates, fences. You have to look at school, because people with autism can sometimes elope from school or things like that, daycare. So you have to make sure that it is written into their plan, wherever they are, that people are going to be responsible. That may include a tracking device. For some people with autism or Asperger's, a tracking device might be useful. It might help people know where they are, so in case someone has taken them a place that they shouldn't be taken, kind of tricked them. Sometimes you get that happening with your teenagers, or they're just a child that's unable to communicate or speak very well, and you need to know where they are. Consider that. There's a new generation of tracking devices. It can go in their shoe, can go in their jean, maybe in a cell phone. And I would also add that one of the most life-threatening aspects of autism is sadly being bullied, socially excluded, things like that. That's always happening in people with autism spectrum disorder. People bully them, exclude them. The risk of suicide is unfortunately very high. So do not be afraid to probe, ask uncomfortable questions, see what's happening. Even if they don't tell you, you need to ask other people at school what they know, what they've seen. Even though it's an uncomfortable thing, we do need to be aware that this is a very dangerous situation at times. Be very, very vigilant. Stay upbeat, be positive, and realize no one person and no one family can keep a child with autism safe all by themselves. Get the support you need, look around, be vigilant. It's better to take steps you feel that you don't need too soon than too late.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro Business Enterprises. And the items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, you know, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself sometimes, why does my child have meltdowns? Well, the difference between tantrums and meltdowns, they're a part of typical development, but meltdowns are when things get a little bit more out of control, when even the child isn't sure what's entirely wrong. Generally with a meltdown, there's an environmental component. There's something else going on outside the child that's making the tantrum worse. It's really important that we start to be detectives and take notes and look around at the environment and start to figure out what are the things that happen every time your child has a meltdown. And lastly, it's important to get help. You really can't face these kinds of things effectively completely on your own. Tantrums, they're a part of typical development, but don't accept meltdowns as something that just happens. Make sure you get help and support. You might be asking yourself if your child has autism. Welcome back.
And we're back. That was great having Coach E on and hearing about all of her accomplishments.
And during the break, we were attempting to get the co-authors of Raising Ross on Skype, and it's tragic and we're really upset about it, but Skype is not our friend today.
No.
It was not on their end. It's
they were ready to go.
They were ready to go, and we're going to have to reschedule with them because we wanted to make sure that you guys could hear and see them, and we weren't able to do either.
And it's such a worthy book. I read it last night, and it's called Raising Ross, and it's written by Lori Rubin Haber about her journey with her son Ross, who's now a young adult. And it covers every step of the way. There, it's a picture of them together, and all of the advocacy she did on his behalf, and her journey, which is meant to encourage and inspire. So we're going to have her back on with Linda Pradera, who is the co-author. We're going to reschedule that interview so you can see it.
But it is a very good read. They're wonderful writers, and I particularly thought that some of the very realistic talk about having to take care of yourself was particularly inspirational. Want to encourage, if you're needing something to read and really be able to say, okay, somebody else can do this, I can do this. This is a great, great read. You can get it on Amazon right now, Raising Ross. And we will reschedule and have them back on the show. But really a lovely book.
Now you have your own project coming up. Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
So we were talking with Coach E that I do have a one-woman show called the Autism Monologues that is opening. It's called First Preview, but it's considered the opening is May 31st. And there's a total of 5 performances in the month of June. And but this was really something that, I guess the initial kernel from me, I do a lot of speaking, and people were saying to me, you should do a TED Talk, and I was like, well, what would that look like? And I found that there were things that I wanted to say and do, and I started thinking maybe it's a one-woman show, and I mentioned that to you, and you said, hey, I've got these ideas too, maybe we should do a 2-person show. But I'm a paranoid puss, and we were just saying, one of the things that I said in the beginning was, let's make sure that we can separate it out, because I've been in things before where somebody has to leave for summer, and I really thought it would be me that would have to leave. And so you and I started working with this idea, this kernel of an idea, and of course, stuff happened. To both of us, stuff happened.
And my best friend's husband passed away, and I had to go out of town for a little bit.
Well, but I mean, before that, years ago, Reed got sick, her husband got sick, and he died. So we kept, saying, we want to do this, we want to do this. And then I was just sharing that because I had a tumor that had to be removed from my uterus in December. And everybody that I talked to about, it wasn't a fibroid, but it was a tumor. And everybody that I talked to who was like, it's going to be okay, and it wasn't cancer, said to me that women, this is something your bodies do because it's like your body trying to create a baby without, you're too old to have a baby, but it's trying to create because it's unspent creativity.
That's so interesting.
Like 5 people said to me, what creativity thing has been on your plate that's been poking you in the back that you have not done? And I said, okay, I know exactly what it is. So we had talked about being at the Hollywood Fringe, and you had graciously said, this is not my time. And you stepped aside and gave me permission to go on my own, and I did. So, but I was just saying that I don't know that at some point it's not going to go back to being a 2-person show.
It could be,
depending on what your schedule is and what. But for the moment, I'm doing these 5 performances, and it really is like if you cracked my head open and looked at the crazy ways that I look at being an autism mother, that's what it is. And where, because it's all crazy town to me. And all the things maybe that I don't get the opportunity to do and say here, I'm taking those on. And with 5 performances, we're almost sold out, so I have to say that.
Congratulations.
But if people do, there are a few tickets left for 2 of the performances in the middle of June, and you can go to HollywoodFringe.org, I think it is. It's the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and the name of the show is The Autism Monologues, and you can get tickets. They're $12, so
very
affordable. It's right
affordable.
around the price of a movie ticket. So
well,
there's
I'm
that.
very proud of you, my friend. I admire what you've done.
Well, thank you, and I'm proud of you too. It takes a lot to say, here's this thing that I was going to be involved with, but this is not the time, and you go on without me. That takes a lot. That's a good friend to be able to do that, and I appreciate that. It gave me license to go and do what I'm doing. And we'll see. It's one of those things
I think
where
it's great.
I think maybe I've lost my mind.
And that's okay too.
Well, but whatever. But it should be fun, and I know that you're going to come at some point and see it, and that will be really fun. It definitely, there are very funny parts of it, and there are some more poignant parts of it, but I think it's more funny than poignant.
Okay.
And more madcap than hopefully.
Right.
Yeah, a little left of center.
Okay.
So I have no other words to say. In any case, we're going to be back tomorrow.
You've got a show tomorrow.
We have a big show tomorrow. It's going to be absolutely fabulous. We have an autism expert who's going to be here with us answering your questions. Then we have Bonnie Yates for a very small amount of time answering your questions. And then we are spending a great deal of time with another amazing group, Spectrum Laboratories, because they have SpecFest coming up. And so
what is SpecFest?
SpecFest is when they take all the work that their students have been doing all year long, and they basically throw a big festival of the arts. So they have 3 young people who have new CDs that they're putting out that will be launched at SpecFest, and they will show, I think they said 10 short films. And I've always heard about SpecFest and never been able to go because it was always like right around the time of year that was my son's birthday or his birthday party or something that I could not go. But I marked it on this year's calendar. I want to go. It's May 20th, and I really want to encourage other people. If you're in LA, you and Wyatt should come with us.
Okay.
It's a very fun time. I've always heard it's the party of the year.
Okay, great.
So, and celebrating young artists that are on the autism spectrum, and they have this very can-do attitude, which is infectious, you guys. So anyway, tomorrow on the show, Spec Labs, be there for that. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.